Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Dutte. It is a busy Tuesday. We're watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. If we see it coming into the broadcast center, we'll bring it to you right here, live. This is CBS News 24/7. Donald Trump names his vice president and makes a surprise appearance on an emotional day of the Republican National Convention. We look at what to expect on day 2. More burning questions this morning about the security lapses at the former president's campaign rally this weekend, as new video shows the moments before the shooter attempted to assassinate the former president. Plus, the oppressive heat will not let up, where the brutal temperatures are moving next. But we begin this hour with the Republican National Convention, where Donald Trump made his first public appearance last night, just 48 hours since surviving an assassination attempt. The former president wore a bandage over his ear and was grazed by a bullet. His children helped award Florida's delegates for their father, putting Trump over the top and officially securing the party's nomination for the third consecutive time. Watch.
On behalf of the 125 delegates in the unbelievable state of Florida, we hereby nominate every single one of them for the greatest president that's ever lived, and that's Donald J. Trump.
CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Casa is joining us now with more on the action from Milwaukee. Bob, good to see you. This was the first time we all saw the former president since the attempted assassination. Describe the moment that he appeared in that auditorium.
Glad, great to be with you. It was quite a scene last night here in Milwaukee at the arena behind me. You saw former President Trump emerge from the bowels of the arena here at this cavernous place where it's filled with security personnel, Republican delegates, and he walked silently down the carpet into the arena as the musician Lee Greenwood sang "Proud to be an American." And then he took his seat, raising his fist in the air, took his seat with his family. Tucker Carlson, some other supporters were there. And for many Republicans here, it was not just a political moment, but a human one. After that assassination attempt, the applause was rapturous. They believe that this is someone who survived. This is someone who is defiant. And it has united this party in a way I have not seen in a long time.
You're a longtime watcher, reporter who has covered Donald Trump for quite some time. I just want your take on what his demeanor was like. It struck me as when he walked into that auditorium there to that rapturous applause, that one of the things that I noticed is his smile. Generally, when Donald Trump strides out into a rally, his smile is often a grimace or sort of that tough guy look that he gives off. It seemed here that he was almost, I can't describe the kind of smile, which is not one that I've typically seen on his face.
You saw visibly someone who was processing the moment. This was someone who was not projecting a particular image. Of course, it's a public event. He's a major political figure, a former president who has done so much television over the years, been a public figure for nearly a half century. But he is someone I've covered for so long, and he rarely betrays how he's feeling about anything. He will always have his shoulders out and up. He will have his chest out. He will be giving that sort of grimace smile at different public events. But you saw last night someone who was just adjusting to what it means to come back to an arena, to come back to this kind of public event, his first sort of event of this type since Saturday night, not that long ago. And it was something that you could see people in the crowd weeping, some of them crying, some just kind of silently, stoically watching. And it was a charged moment. So often these conventions are charged politically. But for Trump, whose personal story is not often part of these political events, it's more about what he's going to do for the country, his policies. This was kind of a reflective moment for a party that doesn't have a lot of reflective moments in this kind of frenetic political atmosphere.
And Bob, finally, we just showed pictures of the former president with his vice presidential nominee, the person that he picked personally to be his running mate, J.D. Vance of Ohio. It apparently came down to the wire. What was it about Vance that pushed him over the edge? And I wonder if part of the questioning that the former president had in interviewing these potential vice presidential nominees was what they would have done back in 2020 to certify the 2020 election.
It's partly that. You see in Senator Vance someone who is in lockstep with former President Trump, not just on the issue of election 2020, but on foreign policy. He's averse, for example, to having more U.S. involvement with Ukraine as it battles Russia in that war. So you saw the former president, based on our reporting, bouncing around from the different options. Maybe North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, maybe Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, maybe Florida Senator Marco Rubio, maybe Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. Ultimately, many business leaders, political leaders were urging him to go with a more traditional Republican pick, maybe even think about Nikki Haley, his former rival, go with Governor Burgum. But ultimately, he picked up someone who his son, Donald Trump Jr., and others had been privately urging him to pick to carry the torch for Trump's ideology. There's a real firm belief in Trump's inner circle that whenever he leaves the political scene, they don't want his politics, his blueprint for America, to be some spasm in American political history that just fades into the history books. They want it to be something that lasts. And to last in American politics, you need people who can articulate the ideas in a fundamental way and to have real political stature. And they're giving J.D. Vance just that.
And he's only 39 years old. Robert Casa, thanks for your reporting. As always, my friend, appreciate you. Okay, President Biden now is saying that he made a mistake when on a call with donors last week, he was reported saying, quote, "It's time to put Trump in the bullseye." Some Republicans have been highly critical of those comments after the assassination attempt on the former president. Listen.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies. Focus on the number of lies he told in the debate. Focus. I mean, there's a whole range of things that, look, I'm not the guy that said, I want to be a dictator on day one. I'm not the guy that refused to accept the outcome of the election. I'm not the guy who said that wouldn't accept the outcome of this election automatically. You can't only love your country when you win.
All right, for more on this, let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman. Willie, those comments that the president made to Lester Holt, look, words matter, as we know in this business. Words do matter. He's saying that he meant put the focus on Donald Trump, not to foment any kind of physical violence or physical target on the former president. How's that being received by others who've heard the president take account for his words?
Hey there, Vlad. Good to be with you. Well, I think even with the president's explanation, Republicans will still use his words against him in terms of that violent rhetoric that the president talked about in his Oval Office address. He talked about bringing the temperature down, so to speak. And in his remarks, as you mentioned there to Lester Holt of NBC News, he essentially walked back those comments. But at the same time, he criticized former President Donald Trump for not only his rhetoric, but for his proposed actions in terms of his response to the terrible day of January 6th, how President Trump has essentially promised to pardon or get rid of the sentences for those people who were charged and sentenced to jail, for attacking the U.S. Capitol. The president is seemingly walking a fine line here, or at least trying to, in terms of his criticism of Trump after this assassination attempt. The Biden campaign says it'll do its part to bring down the temperature, but the president is staying on that course to criticize President Trump for those perceived threats against democracy. He pushed back in that interview, and we all watched it. It was pretty contentious at times with Lester Holt. He talked about how the former president, still remains a threat to American democracy. He talked about the lies that he perpetuated on stage there at the debate. And the president was fielding questions from Lester Holt about his own performance and how he was perceived to mince words or mix up his words or be lost at times during that debate. And that's something that the president pushed back on. And while the president is out west in Nevada, he's certainly going to continue that message as he pitches his message to black voters, Latino voters, Asian and Pacific Islander voters. Those are the focuses, the focus groups, so to speak, for the president when he's traveling out west in Nevada.
All right. Willie James Inman for us at the White House. Willie, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, we are learning new details about the attempt on former President Trump's life. CBS News Pittsburgh cameras caught an unidentified person bringing suitcases inside the gunman's home yesterday in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Joining me now with more on the investigation is CBS News Pittsburgh reporter Lauren Linder. Lauren, what else do we know this morning? What else did your cameras capture?
Well, Vlad, good morning. At this time, it's quiet here in Bethel Park, outside the home of the gunman who shot former President Donald Trump. You can see, though, there is still crime tape blocking the street where he lives as police continue to secure the scene. Now, our cameras caught some activity at the home last night. My colleagues questioned a person who came there. They were unloading some luggage from a vehicle. This person appeared to possibly be connected to the gunman's family. It's unclear, though, at this time who they were. Now, they were unloading a couple suitcases and they carried them inside. Earlier, though, yesterday, we watched as investigators canvass the area, knocking on doors, trying to find out any information they can about what led up to this shooting of the former president. Now, people in the neighborhood remain in shock, especially after learning that the shooter, Thomas Crooks, had bomb-making materials in his family home. And we've learned that the FBI has gained access into Crooks' cell phone that was sent to a lab in Quantico, but have not said if there was any information on the device that would lead them to a motive. Agents have conducted nearly 100 interviews and are focusing on his other electronic devices like the shooter's laptop. Also, according to a source in law enforcement, we learned that Crooks visited a gun shop in Bethel Park Saturday morning before the rally in Butler. They say he bought 50 rounds of ammo, and we know the AR-style rifle that he used was purchased legally by Crooks' father in 2013. And that car that we showed you that we caught here last night, you can see, has since left, which means there is activity happening here in Bethel Park. Again, people going and coming from the neighborhood, and we'll continue to monitor the situation out here. For now, back to you.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much for your reporting. Appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, special counsel Jack Smith's office is planning to appeal the decision from a federal judge who dismissed the criminal classified documents case against the former president. That judge determined that the appointment of the special counsel violated the Constitution of the United States. Let's talk about weather now. Heat wave bringing sweltering temperatures to the East Coast. Coming up, what to expect through the week. We'll be right back. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Tens of millions of people in the Midwest are facing the threat of dangerous storms this morning. The Chicago area saw heavy rain and strong winds overnight, and the National Weather Service reported as many as 10 twisters were on the ground. In central Iowa, at least one tornado was confirmed. The National Weather Service says it was a life-threatening situation for those in the area and warned that homes and businesses would be heavily damaged. Thousands across the region are still without power. An extreme heat wave, meanwhile, continues to bake the East Coast today, with heat index temperatures expected to hit above 100 degrees in many places. Our Tom Hansen is in Brooklyn with a lot more on how New Yorkers are bracing for the heat. Tom, what's it feel like out there?
Yeah, well, Vlad, as a fellow New Yorker, I've come prepared, ready with a sweat towel because it is going to be hot and sticky today. Right now, it's in the mid-80s, but that is not going to last for long as the sun continues to bear down on the Big Apple. It's expected to get into the mid-90s today. It's not going to feel that way, though. It's going to feel in the triple digits here, and we're not alone. 120 million Americans are under heat advisories, mainly in the Northeast corridor. In Baltimore, 103 is the high today. It's expected to feel like 110. And in D.C., if the temperature breaks 101, this will be the third consecutive day, first time in 100 years, that has been the high temperature in this period of the year. So as you can see behind me, people are already out trying to cool down. We have some kids playing in the fountains here at Domino Park. We also spoke with one person who says that the heat did not stop her from taking a run this morning with her dog. Take a look.
I actually came out early to walk my dog, knowing that it's going to be, feeling like over 100 degrees today. You have to alter your schedule to make it work, so we're doing what we have to do.
To keep you and Gilly safe.
To keep both of us safe, yes.
doing what she has to do. You know, it's not just animals that should be taken into consideration. These heat waves can be incredibly dangerous. City of New York says that they have opened 500 cooling centers. That's in museums, that's in schools, other public places for people who may not have access to air conditioning. Those are all available to the public today. Mayor Eric Adams also saying that 600 buildings across the city will be dialing back their energy usage. That's, of course, to avoid the possibility that there could be certain blackouts in New York City. So, Vlad, people taking it very seriously today. And, of course, this is a potentially dangerous situation for so many people out there. Experts say that if you are experiencing nausea, cold sweats, any of those conditions, you should go inside, hydrate. If you're still experiencing those kinds of symptoms after 30 minutes, you should probably consider going to the emergency room. Vlad?
All right, that's good advice. Tom Hansen reporting from Brooklyn. Tom, thank you, my brother. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go into CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo with a look at the national forecast. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Vlad. Yeah, we are sweltering here in Philadelphia as well. In fact, we haven't hit 100. We haven't hit the triple digits here in Philadelphia since 2012. We have a chance to do it today. But as we just heard, it's more about the humidity and those heat index values. And take a look at the heat index values already. This is what we're looking at. And it's only 10 o'clock in the morning, already feeling like near 100 degrees across parts of the east. Right now, it feels like 100 in Hatteras. It feels like 95 here in Philadelphia. And this is only the morning. So it's just going to get worse. This dangerous heat will continue to build all day long. So we've got kind of three areas that we're looking at for dangerous heat today, where we have heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. Where you see the pink, those are the warnings over Arkansas into portions of western Tennessee today. We've got expected highs in the upper 90s. That then stretches over toward the Carolinas, where we've got expected highs today in the mid 90s, right through much of North and South Carolina, possibly even upper 90s, and into the Northeast, where we are continuing to swelter. Baltimore, 101 today. As you head down toward, we mentioned D.C., another day in the triple digits, and we may fall just short of that triple digit mark here in Philadelphia at 99, 90s in New York City as well. And those heat index values, that's how your body really responds to the heat. That's why you have to look at the feels like temperatures. We're going to see feels like temperatures all across the Northeast this afternoon in the triple digits. So just some excessive heat reminders. Drink water before you think you need it. Drink plenty of water. Stay hydrated if you have to be outside at all. Loose clothing. Cool showers, find some shade, go to those cooling centers. That's what they're there for. Check on anyone you know that may need some help staying cool, elderly neighbors or relatives. Keep the pets inside as well. Again, taking them out in the morning or late evening, best time to do it. But at the height of the day, it's going to be feeling possibly like 105 to 110 in our major Northeast metropolitan cities. And we've got storms to talk about. There's one complex of storms moving through the Midwest that did push south of Chicago after last night, but we're seeing flash flood warnings across much of southern Illinois this morning. These storms are ongoing. Where you see these kind of maroon boxes, those are active flash flood warnings. The problem is these storms have so much moisture to work from. It is so humid out there that a storm comes through, it's like wringing out a sponge. So several spots across the nation with a severe threat today. Right now, it's over the Midwest, but later on this afternoon, we could see some pretty nasty storms fire up across portions of the Northeast as well, possibly even with the threat for isolated tornadoes. We'll have more on that coming up, and I'll tell you when the heat will finally start to break. Vlad, I'll send it back over to you.
All right, looking forward to that, Kate. Looking forward to that report on when the heat will finally give us some relief. Thank you. Lawmakers are are reacting to Trump's choice to pick J.D. Vance as his running mate. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian joins me next from Capitol Hill to break it all down. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. All right, folks, we're monitoring some breaking news out of Thailand, where police say 6 people have been found dead at a Bangkok hotel. The Associated Press reports that poisoning is suspected. You're looking at some pictures moments ago outside of the hotel. Reporting from the BBC says that this is the Grand Hyatt in Bangkok. Police are moving in and out of the building. We don't actually know the ages of those who died or if there's yet a suspect police are looking for, but we will obviously continue to monitor the situation. You can see crowds and even photographers and journalists are starting to gather outside of the hotel. Again, this coming into our newsroom from just moments ago in Bangkok, Thailand, where 6 people have been found dead. Poison is the suspected cause of death. More on that when we get some information. We'll bring it to you live right here at CBS News 24/7. Meanwhile, closer to home, President Biden will deliver a keynote address at the NAACP convention today after briefly pausing his campaign following the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump on Saturday. White House correspondent for the Associated Press, Zeke Miller, is joining us now with more on the Biden campaign. So, Zeke, we talked a little earlier with our White House correspondent, Willie James Inman, about how the assassination attempt on the former president would impact how the president is approaching this trip to Nevada and the campaign in general. How might this change the tenor of his campaign without losing what he thinks is important for his supporters to know, which is his record versus the record of the former president and the policies that the former president is suggesting that he would implement should he be reelected?
You know, that really is the challenge for the Biden campaign at this juncture, coming out of that devastating debate and that intra-party drama, that crisis of confidence that the president had been facing for the last couple of weeks. After that debate, you know, the Biden campaign on Friday was looking to reset by getting tougher on former President Donald Trump, and we saw some of that tougher rhetoric from President Biden at a rally on Friday in Detroit, and some interviews that he's given since. And then that assassination attempt happened on Saturday on former President Trump. And that paused the race, as you mentioned, and also caused just a general rethinking of political rhetoric. And that really is going to be a very tough needle to thread for President Biden and for his campaign, both to appeal for unity and also get tough on former President Trump's policies in such a way that doesn't undercut that. And that will, you know, President Biden has said that he will continue to call former President Trump a threat to democracy. That rhetoric is not going to change, but things like we saw last week at a conversation of donors saying, using the term bullseye, I think we'll see a lot more discipline from President Biden and his campaign about the language that they use, particularly when it comes to something that can be, you know, those violence-tinged metaphors that often find their way into politics.
Zeke, I want to get your take from what you're hearing from your sources about the discussions that were being had before the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump with regards to President Biden perhaps stepping aside or dropping out of the race for the presidency. It seems as if those discussions, at least as it relates to reporters, has somewhat cooled, but this isn't going away. Is that what we're to understand, that these discussions will continue at a time when the party feels it is appropriate, or is that just completely a done deal? Biden is the nominee and he's staying there until Election Day.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where the underlying concerns, you know, with Democrats wasn't, you know, should Biden stay or go? So could Biden win? And I think that is still very much an open question. The piece of, you know, will President Biden be the Democratic nominee? You know, Democrats, you know, he's essentially running out the clock on Democrats, and events have gotten in the way, as we saw this weekend. But, you know, the momentum to ditch Biden at the top of the Democratic ticket has certainly subsided in an organized fashion. We haven't seen that steady drumbeat of lawmakers and celebrities and other political actors calling on President Biden to step aside. But every poll, every verbal flub, and every day we get closer to the election, and he still trails in the polls, is going to keep those fears alive. And so for the Biden campaign, that's really the challenge. I mean, yes, they've won, they've won the battle, but, you know, can they win the war? You know, he seems to be secure right now, at least on the top of the ticket. But those underlying concerns that Democrats have, in some ways, have only intensified in the last couple of days.
All right, Zeke Miller, always great to talk to you, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance has only been in Congress for about a year and a half, but now he is competing to hold the second highest seat in the United States government. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is joining us now from Capitol Hill. Nicole, I guess the question is, how are his fellow lawmakers reacting to news of J.D. Vance being selected as former President Trump's running mate?
Well, as you can imagine, particularly among congressional Republicans, there is a sense of excitement and pride, being that this is one of their own. You know, we have seen a range of reaction from Speaker Johnson on down to, for instance, House Republican Conference Chair Elise Stefanik, who called J.D. Vance a strong choice and even was at one point in consideration for the vice presidential slot. You know, there are others here in the Senate, like Senator Lindsey Graham, who have praised J.D. Vance for kind of his humble upbringings, his rags to riches story, but celebrating that as someone who, in his view, is a stellar choice, to use Graham's words. So there is, for the most part, even though J.D. Vance is a relative newcomer to the Senate, a sense, again, of excitement and, you know, anticipation for what he brings to the Trump ticket.
So the other question I have, Nicole, is there are some senators who are well-liked, not only by members of their own party, but also members across the aisle. They may not agree on policy. They may not agree on the direction of the country, but they get along. Is he one of those characters?
Well, I think, again, he's still relatively new, so he doesn't necessarily have those long-forged relationships, right? But there have been some instances where he has worked across the aisle, particularly on this issue of rail safety, where he worked across the aisle with Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, as well as Pennsylvania Senators John Fetterman and Bob Casey, all Democrats, I might add. And obviously, you know, J.D. Vance was very instrumental in helping to bring the president to East Palestine in the wake of that train derailment, which is kind of what sparked some of that legislation. So there are those times where he has been somebody who works across the aisle, but at the same time, as we know, he has been a very ardent defender of the president, kind of towing the party line, particularly in terms of, you know, those MAGA principles, America First ideals. So, you know, depending on the issue, it can at times go both ways.
And the other question, of course, that a lot of people will have is, look, we know that J.D. Vance, that election to the United States Senate was a tough one. He got over the finish line because former President Donald Trump endorsed him and actually came out and supported him. As you know, Nicole, you reported how much money was spent, specifically how much money Mitch McConnell allocated to winning that seat that J.D. Vance now holds. What happens now? Is that seat up for grabs? Or, I mean, Ohio's relatively red, has been at least national in terms of national elections. But what are you hearing?
Well, I think it's too early to say. I mean, I think people are still digesting the news. I was actually outside of J.D. Vance's office yesterday here on Capitol Hill just before the news was announced, and I saw his staffers kind of nervously looking at their phones. All of a sudden, they shut the door, and then you heard these cheers erupt once the president put out that Truth Social post. But look, I mean, you know, certainly, as is always the case, if, you know, the former president and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance are successful as a ticket and go on to win the presidency and the vice presidency, then it does certainly raise questions about what happens to that Senate seat. Obviously, the governor would have to appoint someone temporarily to the seat, and there are certainly a number of lawmakers potentially who may jockey for that position, but probably too premature yet, since we're still 4 months out from the election.
Well, Killian, for us, always bringing us the news that we need. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right, the head coach of England's men's national team has resigned from his role just days after losing in the European Championship final. Coming up, why Gareth Southgate decided to make that decision. We're streaming CBS News 24/7. As we've been reporting all morning long, it was a very busy first day at the Republican National Convention last night. Former President Donald Trump made his first public appearance since the attempt on his life, wearing a bandage over his injured ear. And as we've mentioned, the former president announced his intended running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. CBS News campaign reporter Torian Small joins me now from Milwaukee with more. So, Torian, today's theme for the convention is Make America Safe Again. Coming off this weekend shooting, how might that impact some of these talking points?
Vlad, we're expecting speakers tonight to focus on what they're calling Biden's soft on crime policies. A large majority of tonight's themes will also focus on the border. Now, on that shooting, we've heard throughout the week so far, people reference the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, so it's likely that that would be tied into this as well. But the majority of what we're seeing so far is this pivot since that assassination attempt to a focus on unity across the nation. And likewise, we're expecting to hear from former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley tonight. It's interesting because up until Sunday, her team said that it was unlikely that she will be even attending the convention, let alone speaking tonight. Vlad, I talked to former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, as you know, was a presidential hopeful and also a never Trumper. He was here yesterday and he told me that that signs that Donald Trump is willing to embrace unity. As for him, though, he's still not there yet when it comes to endorsing the former president. Vlad.
Yeah, it's interesting, Tori. And yesterday, Mitch McConnell was booed when he was offering the delegates from the state of Kentucky. Many Trump supporters see him as not a strong supporter of President Trump, even though he is probably the most conservative, most Republican member of the United States Senate that there is. I wonder if the Haley camp is a bit worried about how the crowd will react to her speech, because we know it may be one thing to be invited to speak at the convention or even to be there on the scene. It's quite another with the crowd.
It's certainly something that they're monitoring. And this is something I talked to Governor Hutchinson about yesterday, too. He said in reference to that booing from the crowd to Speaker McConnell, or former Speaker McConnell, that this is a matter of respect. Yes, the party is now firmly in the image of Donald Trump, but he's hoping that Republicans can still give respect or at least appreciation for the conservatives that paved the way for Donald Trump. As for Nikki Haley, again, he's hoping that this would be an olive branch of sorts. Of course, Haley decided that she was going to release her delegates to Donald Trump, the first in what they're hoping to be the many crossings of Haley supporters over the line to Donald Trump in November.
All right, Torian Small reporting from Milwaukee for us. Torian, thank you. One woman is dead now after a tree fell on a home during severe storms near Cedar Lake, Indiana, Monday night. The National Weather Service reported at least 10 tornadoes last night as dangerous storms hit the Chicago area and northwest Indiana for a second night. Those storms are now expected to hit the East Coast over the next 2 days. The area is also seeing a major heat wave with potential record high temperatures. CBS News Chicago reporter Marissa Perlman is in Cedar Lake, Indiana, where severe storms hit last night, as we mentioned. Marissa, tell us about the damage.
Yeah, Vlad, good to be with you. Sadly, this storm rolled through, creating severe damage for this area. A deadly storm for this small community here in Cedar Lake, Indiana. We now know that this massive old tree snapped practically in half, landing on top of this home here. We spoke with the superintendent of the Public Works Department here in town. He says it speared through the roof and landed on top of this 44-year-old woman while she was lying in bed. That tree still here right now. This happened just after 10, in the peak of really when these storms rolled through the Chicagoland area. Public Works telling us that woman, her name 44-year-old Laura Nagel, was in bed. Her daughter and husband were in the living room of this home when that tree came through. Now, the Public Works Director says this is the worst damage that he has seen in more than 10 years of responding to incidents just like this one, responding to severe weather here in Cedar Lake. The entire home, which is on a one-way street in a heavily wooded area here in town, will now need to come down. And again, now neighbors tell us the sheer sound of that tree coming down is something that they will remember for a very long time. This, again, the only reported fatality here across the Chicagoland area as this community now begins to pick up the pieces. For now, Vlad, back to you.
All right, Marissa, thank you very much for your reporting. Appreciate it. Let us bring back CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo with a look at the national forecast. Kate.
Thanks so much, Vlad. Yeah, we have more storms on the docket today. Now, this is the same front that eventually will finally break the brutal heat wave that's basically happening all across the Northeast. You can see as we take a look at our map here, we're going to pull up basically current temperatures across the map, and it's already feeling pretty steamy outside this morning, depending on where you are. The worst of the heat is across the Northeast. It's already 76 in New York City. We're already at 84 degrees in Atlanta. And as we go through the next couple of hours, we're going to continue to see what we are feeling across much of the Northeast, which is the heat. It is feeling incredibly hot outside. We've got
Kate, just stand by for a moment just to apologize to our audience there. You could see that her image went out, technical difficulty there from the feed coming into the CBS News Broadcast Center. But have no fear, folks. Check out behind me. There are feeds coming into the BC from all of our stations across the country. So we're going to bring you a lot more news throughout the course of this hour. Let's focus on some baseball. Baseball's brightest stars are in Arlington, Texas for tonight's MLB All-Star Game. Coming up, we're going to bring you a preview of what to expect. We'll be right back. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. All right, folks, early in the broadcast, we brought you some breaking news out of Thailand where police say 6 people have been found dead at a Bangkok hotel. We continue to monitor developments there. You can see photographers, a throng of photographers just a few minutes ago. They were not out there. There are only a few. Numbers of photographers and journalists on the scene is growing. The AP is reporting the victims died from suspected poisoning. This is the scene outside of the hotel. The BBC reports it is the Grand Hyatt in Bangkok, Thailand. We've seen police also moving in and out of the building. We don't know yet the ages of those who died or if there's a suspect. Again, the BBC is reporting that there may be some Americans that were killed in this poisoning, Vietnamese Americans, according to the BBC. So this is a very, very fluid situation here. There is supposed to be a press conference. In fact, you could see an official stepping to that throng of reporters there trying to answer questions. Obviously, once we figure out what it is he is saying and what the reports are from the police, we'll bring you those developments. But incredibly troubling to hear a story out of Thailand like this, where 6 people have died, which police say is now thought to be a suspected case of poisoning. So more on that a little bit later. Okay, we are in the midst of an affordable housing crisis here in the United States. As the cost of rent increases nationally, so do the number of eviction notices. CBS News' Chris Van Cleve reports from one of the hardest hit counties, that's Maricopa County in Arizona, where what's been described as a tsunami of evictions are leaving people homeless.
When Mahogany Kennedy knocks at a door in Phoenix,
Constable! Does the person understand that they're getting evicted?
It usually means someone is about to become homeless.
Grab your bag. We're going to change the locks.
She's one of 26 Maricopa County constables. It's her job to serve eviction notices.
Eviction numbers have truly gone up over the past few months.
So pretty much every day you're evicting people?
Every day I'm evicting, 5 days a week.
On this day, she'll attempt to serve 3 evictions.
She's gone.
Including at this apartment.
And then, this is a 3-bedroom apartment,
which used to be home to 7 people.
You can use my phone.
Heaven Glasgow was the last to leave.
Just trying to get it together. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's a lot.
It is, and everything is just so expensive right now, which is crazy.
Eviction filings in the Phoenix area are surging to record highs.
You know, I was just like, not today. Not today, please.
This judgment does say that you need to move out by the 26th.
In her South Phoenix courtroom, Judge Anna Huberman hears as many as 500 eviction cases a month, more than when the pandemic-era eviction moratorium ended 3 years ago.
There was a belief that there would be a large number of filings, that the evictions would go up, and they did not go up. There wasn't a tsunami.
Do you think you're getting that tsunami of evictions now?
That's what it appears to be, yes.
Since March of last year, Maricopa County has led the nation in eviction filings. The numbers are up 21% here compared to pre-pandemic, topping 83,000 filings. Nationally, about 3.6 million evictions are filed annually, but what's changing is where they're happening.
At least 14 cities have seen double-digit increases from 2019. Most are in the Sun Belt, where populations are growing and rents are rising.
It's parents and children who are at the heart of the eviction crisis.
Dr. Carl Gershenson runs the Eviction Lab at Princeton University, which tracks the issue in 34 cities.
So these families are just one unexpected expense away from eviction.
Schedule a time and come get whatever else that you need in the house.
Christopher Aranda lived with his girlfriend in this home for 7 years.
So this is what you need right now.
The lease was in her name when she lost her battle with cancer in January. After not working for months to care for her, Aranda says he couldn't come up with the $3,000 needed to stay. How are you feeling today?
A lot of memories. It is what it is.
Where are you going to go now?
I have no idea. I got to start from scratch.
Starting over as Constable Kennedy heads to another door with another eviction order. For Eye on America, Chris Van Cleve, Phoenix.
Such a tough story. All right, let's go overseas now, where the search is on for a new national soccer team coach in England. Manager Gareth Southgate is leaving the men's team just days after his team was defeated by Spain in the European Championship. For more on this, I want to bring in Jane Dougal with our partners at the BBC. Jane, after this weekend's big loss, was this move? I argue that England did better than anybody expected them to in reaching the finals. I was clearly rooting for France the entire time. But so you get all the way to the finals, then you lose your job. Was that kind of expected?
Well, it wasn't perhaps the fact that they got to the final. It was the nature and how they got there. I mean, listen, Vlad, it wasn't really a surprise when the announcement came today. Gareth Southgate's contract is up in December, and many thought that he would go before then. Despite England getting to the final of the European Championship on Sunday, they had not played to their full potential on the way to that final. There was a lot of criticism of his tactics and of his team selection. There was a particularly awkward moment when, during the group stages, England drew 0-0 with Slovenia, who are ranked 57th in the world. And fans booed the team as Southgate went over to applaud them at the end of the match. Some even threw empty cups at him. He said he was upset by that, naturally, and his saving grace would have been a trophy. But as you mentioned, on Sunday, they lost 2-1 to Spain in the final, which isn't an embarrassment in itself, particularly. Spain were the most impressive team in the tournament. But in 8 years, Gareth Southgate has not won any silverware with England's men's senior team. And ultimately, they failed to end a 58-year wait for a major trophy. So this morning at around 11 o'clock UK time, he resigned. In a statement, he said, "As a proud Englishman, it has been the honour of my life to play for England and to manage England. It has meant everything to me and I have given it my all, but it is time for change and for a new chapter. Sunday's final in Berlin against Spain was my last game as England manager."
All right, Jane Dougal breaking it down for us. We'll see who the next coach is. Jane, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, like any other big sporting event, Major League Baseball's Home Run Derby last night began with the National Anthem. But Grammy-nominated country singer-songwriter Ingrid Andress offered something a little bit jarring to the ears. Listen to this.
Gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
Yikes. USA Today called her performance cringeworthy. The New York Post called it a, quote, train wreck. But okay, people should understand the Star-Spangled Banner is a very, very, very difficult song to sing. It has proven to be difficult for many an accomplished singer. The song in the original key is in B-flat major. I challenge anyone at home to go to your computer, find a tone, B-flat major, find that note and sing the Star-Spangled Banner from B-flat major. The entire song spans an octave and a half, so you get to Home of the Free, and you gotta be at an F. That is really, really, really hard for many, many singers. So Ingrid is a great singer. If you go and check out her music, even her performance at the Country Music Awards, she sounds fine. But if you start at the wrong key, and if you're singing it a cappella, It ain't easy. So sending much love to Ingrid. Better luck next time. Okay, an encore performance of CBS Mornings is coming up next. This is CBS News 24/7.